Welcome back to another segment of Gene Therapy, A Whole New World. It's your girl Hannah, and today we are infusing some fun knowledge into the numbers and real world data shaping the future of treatments. Did you know 94% of participants in clinical trials were able to remain free of continuous prophylaxis treatment for 4 years after receiving the hemophilia B gene therapy? Let that sink in. 94%. And real-world data is beginning to mirror these findings, suggesting that this treatment isn't just effective in controlled settings, but also in everyday clinical practice. Clinical trials included participants ranging from 19 to 76 years old, proving that hemophilia B gene therapy is a viable option across a wide age spectrum. Notably, age of the participant did not impact the responses seen. Additionally, 52% of participants had a history of hepatitis C, and about 5% had HIV. Yet, as long as these conditions were well managed at the time of treatment, patients responded just as well as those without these prior conditions. Crazy. But before we infuse more fun facts into this conversation, it's a whole new world gene therapy segment brought to you by CSLBehring and their hemophilia B gene therapy treatment. To learn more about gene therapy, hear patient stories, and view additional resources, visit beyondhemb.com or download B Support wherever you get your apps for more information and to manage your treatment journey. Let's continue to dive in with Dr. Richard Lemons, who is a distinguished pediatric hematologist oncologist based in Salt Lake City, Utah. Dr. Lemons serves as the professor in the Department of Pediatrics at the University of Utah School of Medicine and holds the positions of Medical Director and Chief of Pediatric Hematology and Oncology at both Primary Children's Medical Center and the University of Utah.
So we have 4-year data for the phase 3 HOPE-B trial that was initiated back in 2020. And then we also have some longer-term data, 6-year data for the phase 2B trial that involved just 3 patients. So 3 patients were treated initially in the phase 2B trial to look at safety and efficacy. All 3 patients responded very well. And then 2 years later, the phase 3 larger trial of 54 participants took place. What the most remarkable thing is, I think, is that the mean factor IX levels have been durable and sustainable and very consistent over that 4-year period from year 1 to year 2, year 3, and year 4. Year 1, the factor IX level was 41.5%, so in the normal range. Year 2 is 36.7, year 3, 38.6, and year 4, 37.4. So we haven't really seen a change in that factor IX level. And that may be due to several things. Also, the safety data is very favorable as well. So these patients have done remarkably well. We treated 2 patients on the HOPE-B phase 3 trial here in Utah, and they are now over 5 years out from the initial treatment and are doing very well and have sustainable, durable levels of factor IX. So the durability and sustainability of that factor IX level and the really the high, mild, normal range for the mean value is quite remarkable. And it's particularly significant since this is a once-in-your-lifetime treatment. It's a single IV infusion in the outpatient setting. And the fact that this has now remained durable and stable consistently over that 4-year period with a very favorable safety profile really says that these patients have had a great response and have done very well overall. So I want to stop prophylaxis. Or the patient may say, I really want to engage in different activities and do things that I'm not able to do now that I hopefully could do if I underwent gene therapy and had a stable, durable level, and I knew what my level was day to day, week to week. So I think it really provides the opportunity now and confidence for providers to look at this as a long-term treatment option from a single infusion.
That's right. One-time infusions. Potentially a lifetime of change. But how do we ensure we're capturing long term outcomes? Well, that's where ATHEN, the American Thrombosis and Hemostasis Network, comes in.
Now that it's commercially available, there are patients that are receiving it. Um, and we're encouraging patients that do receive gene therapy to register in an Athens database. So, and Athens has created a database for all patients who are receiving gene therapy, whether it's hemophilia A, B, or even potentially other bleeding disorders. And so that information, hopefully, as patients register, and we can collect and track their factor levels, their any adverse events, their quality of life. We can track all that data, hopefully over time, that then would be available to both providers and to patients to really look at gene therapies that are available or have been used to treat patients similar to any individual patient, to really look at that.
Real world data, long term monitoring. These are key to understanding the full potential of gene therapy beyond clinical trial setting. But how does real world experience infuse into the comparison to what was observed in trials?
That's always a question that patients and providers ask and want to know is, we have a clinical trial data, but how well does that correlate with real world data when patients actually receive the treatment? But I'm quite optimistic from my experience with our two participants, and then also, the published data and the data that's been presented for all 54 participants, that I'm optimistic that for patients that decide to move forward with a commercial product, that they'll have a similar experience and be able to stop prophylaxis or have a very good chance of stopping prophylaxis and having an improvement in their quality of life. So far, I think that's an important point for patients to know. If they do receive the commercial product, are they likely to have the same experience that patients did during the clinical trial? I'm quite optimistic that'll be the case for this treatment.
For many, stopping prophy isn't about convenience, it's about improving quality of life. And gene therapy has demonstrated this potential, but long term monitoring is crucial.
But certainly when patients get out to the 6-month period after their gene therapy infusion, if they're doing well and don't have any issues or concerns, and their factor level is stabilized, which it certainly should be, then I recommend that patients, continue with annual, once a year, comprehensive visits, because they still may have issues from perhaps joint disease that they encountered prior to gene therapy or other issues. If it's an older patient, more of a senior citizen that received gene therapy, and the youngest patient in the clinical trial was 19, the oldest patient was 76, and there was no difference based on age in terms of response.
Wow, that is a very critical point, Dr. Lemons. Age is not a limiting factor, making this treatment option available to a broad group of eligible patients. But long term monitoring remains essential, particularly for patients with prior conditions.
And for older patients, if they're at risk of any potential cancer, such as hepatocellular carcinoma, because of earlier risk exposure, if they had hepatitis B or C earlier on, or other conditions that might pose a risk of HCC, that they continue just to be monitored for that. There's been no cases of any malignancy resulting from gene therapy that targets the liver so far, but I think that's important for patients who have other risk factors that might pose a risk to continue to have their regular annual monitoring.
Gene therapy is changing the landscape of treatment for hemophilia B, offering patients the possible of freedom from regular infusions. But as with any new treatment, education and informed decision making are key.
It's important for each individual potential patient to really think about it, what they hope to achieve from gene therapy, what their goals would be, and then to understand and learn as much as they can. The patients that have received it thus far have done very well and have had a really improvement in their quality of life. Have been able to stop, 94% of the participants are able to stop prophylaxis.
That's right, a single infusion, a potential lifetime without prophy. and data that continues to support gene therapy as a viable long-term option for many patients. But one of the biggest questions remains: how long will gene therapy last? As more individuals receiving treatment and real-world data accumulates, we're gaining more insights into durability, long-term outcomes, and how gene therapy could help shape the future of hemophilia care. Thanks for staying with us, folks, as that wraps up today's segment. But stay with us as we continue to infuse the fun into these conversations in our next episode. We'll be joined by Dr. Andrew Davidoff from St. Jude's Research Hospital, who will share his insights on the longevity of gene therapy. Thanks for listening, friends, and we'll see you next time.